The crystal chandelier above the banquet hall cast dancing shadows across 200 smiling faces. My father's retirement dinner was perfect. White tablecloths, expensive wine, speeches about his 35 years of dedication. Then my brother Evan grabbed the microphone. "I want to toast the real backbone of this family," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers. Everyone turned to listen. While some of us built empires, others, well, let's just say my little sister Maya chose a different path. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Maya makes what? 40,000 a year. Evan grinned, looking directly at me. Bless her heart, she tries. But some of us actually carried this family forward while others just existed. The room erupted in knowing chuckles. My husband Marcus sat beside me, stone-faced, saying nothing. Across the table, my mother-in-law Diane smirked into her wine glass. My face burned hot with shame. Evan raised his glass higher. To Dad, who taught us that success requires ambition. Some of us inherited that lesson better than others. Every eye in that room found me, the failure, the disappointment, the sister who never measured up. My name is Maya Chen. I'm 34 years old, from Portland, Oregon. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to my channel for more fascinating stories like this. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. I forced my lips into a smile, the kind I'd perfected over years of family gatherings. The kind that said everything was fine when nothing was. I excused myself quietly, weaving through tables of relatives who suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. The bathroom was empty, thank God. I gripped the marble sink and stared at my reflection. Red cheeks.
Tight jaw.
Eyes that looked too tired for 34. No one had defended me. Not one person. Not my husband who'd promised to love and protect me. Not my father, who knew better. Not my aunt, my cousins, nobody. They'd laughed. They'd nodded along. They'd let Evan strip me bare in front of everyone who mattered. Marcus's silence hurt worse than Evan's words. We'd been married for 6 years. 6 years of him supposedly having my back. But tonight, when I needed him most, he'd sat there like a statue. I pressed my palms against my eyes, willing myself not to cry. Not here. Not where someone might walk in and see weakness. The bathroom door creaked open. I pretended to wash my hands. 2 women entered, talking in low voices. I recognized Diane's sharp tone immediately. She's always been dead weight, my mother-in-law whispered. Marcus could have done so much better. My hands stopped moving under the water. I stood completely still, hidden in the stall, listening to them destroy me. People always ask why I never corrected them. Why I let my family believe I scraped by on 40,000 a year when the truth was so different. The answer goes back 7 years, to when I first joined Dad's company. I was 27, fresh out of grad school with a degree in financial systems. I designed a new reporting framework that saved the company millions. I was proud. I was visible. Evan took credit for it at the next board meeting. I sat there, stunned, as he presented my work with minor changes to the labels. Everyone congratulated him. Dad beamed. Evan got promoted. I got a polite nod and a small bonus. That's when I learned visibility made me a target. So, I changed strategies. I kept my head down, did exceptional work, and let the records speak for themselves. I stopped attending company parties. I stopped sharing wins. I built my career in silence. They thought I'd left the company entirely. The truth? I'd moved into private consulting, working with Dad's accountant on projects nobody else understood. The pay was extraordinary. The recognition was zero. I preferred it that way. That night, after the humiliation at Dad's dinner, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. No hard feelings, sis. Just stating facts. Love you. I stared at those words until they blurred.
Facts.
He called his cruelty facts. I confronted Marcus the next morning. He was making coffee, humming like nothing had happened. Why didn't you say anything last night? My voice came out steadier than I expected. He glanced up, confused. About what? About Evan. About what he said to me in front of everyone. Marcus shrugged, pouring cream into his mug. He was just joking around, Maya. You're being too sensitive. Sensitive, I repeated. He publicly humiliated me. He was celebrating Dad. You're making this about you. Marcus took a sip, avoiding my eyes. Besides, Evan's not wrong. You did choose a quieter path.
There's no shame in that.
The words hit like ice water. For the first time, I saw it clearly. Marcus didn't just tolerate my family's treatment. He agreed with it. You think I'm a failure too? I said quietly. I didn't say that. But his tone said enough. I turned to leave, and he called after me. Maya, wait. You should be grateful. Evan helps us more than you think. I stopped. What does that mean? He's been covering some of our expenses. The car payment, remember? The vacation last summer? My stomach dropped. You asked my brother for money? He offered. Because he's family. Because he wanted me dependent. Because he wanted leverage. I walked out without another word. 2 weeks later, Dad called. Maya, I need your help with something. His voice sounded tired. Retirement wasn't suiting him well. He missed the structure, the purpose. Sure, Dad. What do you need? I'm organizing my retirement finances, and the paperwork is a mess. You always notice things others miss. Can you help me sort through it? I hesitated. After the dinner humiliation, part of me wanted to say no. But this was my father. Despite everything, I loved him. Of course. When do you want to meet? Tomorrow? My accountant will be there. You remember Warren Fitzgerald, right? My breath caught. Warren. Of course, I remembered Warren. He was the one person who knew the full scope of my work. The one person who'd seen every contract, every project, every dollar I'd earned over the past 6 years. Yeah, I managed. I remember him. Great. 10 a.m. at my office. After we hung up, I sat very still. This wasn't just about helping Dad organize paperwork. This was something bigger. I could feel it. I pulled out my laptop and opened my financial records. Everything was documented, time-stamped, verified. Years of careful work, hidden in plain sight. The accountant's name stared back at me from dozens of contracts. Warren Fitzgerald, CPA. I closed my laptop slowly, my heart pounding. Tomorrow was going to change everything. Warren's office smelled like leather and old books. He stood when I entered, his weathered face breaking into a genuine smile. Maya, it's been too long. He shook my hand warmly. Your father's lucky to have you helping with this transition. Dad was already seated, looking overwhelmed by the stacks of folders on Warren's desk. I don't know how you keep track of all this, Dad muttered. Warren laughed. That's why I'm here. He glanced at me. Though Maya designed half the tracking systems we use now. You know that, right? The room went quiet. Dad looked confused. What do you mean? The reporting framework. The automated reconciliation system. Maya built those. Warren said it casually, like stating the weather. Evan inherited them when he took over operations, but Maya was the architect. Dad's face shifted, surprise, confusion, something harder to name. Warren didn't notice. He was already pulling files. These systems saved the company almost $3 million over 5 years. Revolutionary work. I stayed silent, watching my father process information he should have known all along. Warren turned to me, his expression curious. Do they still credit you for that? I always assumed you got proper recognition, but I heard Evan took the operations role, so... No, I said quietly. They don't credit me. Warren's smile faded. Understanding dawned slowly across his face. The meeting continued, but tension hung in the air like smoke. I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before. Discrepancies in Evan's reported contributions. Timelines that didn't match the records. Projects he claimed to have led that Warren's files showed different names on. My name, specifically. Dad asked questions, and Warren answered with careful precision. But I caught the accountant glancing at me, reassessing, wondering how deep this deception ran. There's going to be a formal review, Warren mentioned toward the end of our session. The board requires it for any executive transition during retirement. Standard procedure. Dad nodded absently, but I felt the words settle in my chest like stones. A formal review meant public records. Documentation.
Truth.
Warren walked me out while Dad gathered his things. Maya, he said quietly, I don't know the full story, but I keep excellent records. If there's something you want the review to include or exclude, now's the time to say so. I met his eyes. This was my choice. I could ask him to bury my contributions, keep the peace, let Evan's false narrative stand. Or I could let the truth emerge exactly as it was recorded. Include everything, I said. Exactly as documented. No edits. Warren studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then this will be interesting. 2 weeks later, Evan called a family meeting. He was practically vibrating with excitement. I've been offered a major leadership position, he announced, chest puffed out. Vice President of Operations for the entire Western Division. It's basically a done deal. Mom clapped. Dad smiled. Diane practically glowed with pride. My son, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. A vice president. I always knew he'd go far. Evan soaked it in, standing at the head of the table like royalty. Nobody mentioned the formal review Warren had mentioned. Nobody seemed concerned about documentation or verification. They just believed him. Because they always had. This will nearly double my income, Evan continued, looking directly at me. Maybe I'll finally make enough to support the whole family properly. The dig was obvious. Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside me, but said nothing. Maybe I'll finally double what my sister makes, Evan added with a smirk. Diane laughed. Dad chuckled. Even Marcus cracked a smile. I sipped my water and said nothing. Let them celebrate. Let them count their chickens before they hatched. Let Evan build his castle as high as he wanted. The higher the climb, the harder the fall. And Warren's review was scheduled for 3 weeks from today. That night, Marcus cornered me in our bedroom. We need to talk about our finances, he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I continued folding laundry, waiting. Things are tight. The mortgage, the car, everything's adding up. I think we should ask Evan for help. I stopped mid-fold. Excuse me? Just temporarily. Until we get back on our feet. He's about to get this huge promotion. He can afford it. We don't need his help. Maya, be realistic. Your income isn't covering what we need. And with Evan's new position, it's practically family teamwork. Family teamwork. The same phrase Diane used when she wanted something. I said no. Marcus's face hardened. You're being stubborn. This is pride, and pride doesn't pay bills. Our bills are paid, I said quietly. Every single one.
Barely.
And what about the future?
Kids?
A bigger house. We can afford those things. On $40,000 a year? He laughed bitterly. Maya, I love you, but you're not being realistic about our situation. I looked at my husband, this man who'd share my bed for 6 years, but didn't know me at all. I'm not asking Evan for money, I said firmly. Marcus stood, frustrated.
Fine.
But don't blame me when we're struggling. He left the room. I finished folding laundry alone, my hands shaking with anger I didn't let show. He had no idea. None of them did. And soon, very soon, the truth would break wide open. Dad asked me back to Warren's office 3 days later.
More paperwork, he said.
More organization needed. But when I arrived, Warren had a different agenda. I found something interesting, he said, spreading documents across his desk. These are contribution records from your first 5 years of the company. I leaned closer. My name appeared again and again. Primary contributor. Lead architect. System designer. I didn't submit these, I said, confused.
No.
They were always in the files. Annual reports, project summaries, board documentation. Your name is everywhere in the official record. Warren tapped one document. But somewhere between these internal files and public recognition, your contributions disappeared. We both knew who had made them disappear. The review will require all documentation, Warren continued carefully. Everything in the official files gets included. No exceptions. That's protocol. He was giving me an out. asking if I wanted to fight this. I thought about Evan's smug face at the family dinner, Marcus's dismissive shrug, Diane's cutting remarks. Years of being invisible, minimized, erased. Do you want me to include these in the review? Warren asked directly. The question hung between us. This was the moment, the choice that would change everything. Include everything exactly as recorded. I repeated. No edits. No explanations. Just facts. Warren nodded slowly, something like respect in his eyes. Then this will definitely be interesting. I didn't tell anyone what I'd discovered. Not Marcus. Not my parents. Nobody. I went about my life as usual. Quiet Maya. Struggling Maya. Maya with a pathetic salary and small dreams. At another family dinner, Evan was in rare form. The promotion was progressing, and his ego expanded with each passing day. I'm thinking about buying a boat, he announced. Something nice. Maybe a 40-footer. Mahmoud. Dad nodded approvingly. Can you imagine? Evan laughed. Little Maya probably can't even afford the dock fees. Everyone chuckled. I cut my chicken and chewed slowly. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. Diane watched me like I was an interesting science experiment. The family failure, quietly enduring her humiliation. Maya, honey, you're so quiet, Mom said with false sweetness. Everything okay? Everything's fine, I replied. Good. I worry about you sometimes. It can't be easy, you know, seeing your brother succeed so much. I'm happy for Evan, I said truthfully, because I was happy to watch him climb higher, happy to see him grow more confident, more careless, more certain of his untouchable status. The review was in 10 days. Warren had texted me that afternoon. Final disclosure meeting scheduled. All family members invited to attend. I'd replied with a simple thumbs up. 10 more days of being invisible. Then everyone would see me clearly. The family dinner ended with Evan once again holding court. But this time, Dad wasn't laughing along. I noticed him watching Evan with a strange expression, like he was seeing his son through new eyes. When Evan launched into another story about his management brilliance, Dad interrupted. Evan, that project, the system integration you mentioned. When exactly did you design that? Evan blinked, caught off guard. About 6 years ago? Why? 6 years ago, Dad repeated slowly. You're sure about that timeline? Positive. It was one of my first major wins. Dad glanced at me, then back to Evan. His face was unreadable, but I saw the wheels turning behind his eyes. Are you sure about that? Dad asked again, softer this time. Evan's confident smile faltered. Of course I'm sure. Why are you questioning me? Just checking facts, Dad said. Details matter in business. The table went quiet. Evan recovered quickly, laughing it off. But I'd seen the flash of uncertainty in his eyes. The tiny crack in his perfect facade. Dad had started questioning. And once questions began, they rarely stopped. Warren's review was 8 days away. I excused myself early, claiming a headache. Marcus stayed behind, probably hoping to network with my successful brother. I didn't care anymore. As I walked to my car, I heard Dad's voice behind me. Maya. I turned. He stood in the doorway, backlit and uncertain. Are you sure about the timeline? He called. I smiled. Yes, Dad. I'm very sure. Diane showed up at my door 2 days later unannounced. I almost didn't let her in. We need to talk, she said, brushing past me into the living room. I closed the door slowly, waiting. Marcus is unhappy, Diane began. He's concerned about your marriage. Is he? Don't be flippant. This is serious. She settled onto my couch like she owned it. You're holding him back, Maya. Your lack of ambition, your small income, your inability to support the lifestyle he deserves. I crossed my arms. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you reconsider your expectations. If you want to stay married to my son, you need to be realistic about what you can offer. The words landed like slaps. But I'd been slapped before. I knew how to stand still and take it. Marcus deserves a partner who contributes equally, Diane continued. Right now, you're a burden. Evan has to help with your expenses. That's embarrassing for everyone. Evan doesn't help with our expenses. Don't lie to me. Marcus told me everything. The car payment, the mortgage assistance. Evan's been supporting you both for months. My stomach turned. Marcus had gone to Evan behind my back. Taken money I didn't know about. Built a financial dependency I never agreed to. I think you should leave, I said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of my house. Diane stood, eyes flashing. You're making a mistake. My son has options. Beautiful, successful options. Don't think you're irreplaceable. I opened the door. Thank you for making this easier. Making what easier? Everything. She left in a huff. I closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. This marriage was conditional. Always had been. I'd just been too blind to see it. The review was in 5 days. I moved out that weekend. Not dramatically. Just quietly, efficiently, while Marcus was at Evan's house watching football. I rented a furnished apartment across town. 1 bedroom, clean, simple. I took only what was mine: clothes, books, laptop, personal documents. I left the furniture, the shared gifts, everything that tied me to a life I no longer wanted. I left a note on the kitchen counter. I need space. Don't contact me. When Evan heard, he called Marcus immediately. I know because Marcus called me furious. You're embarrassing me, he shouted. Evan's laughing. Everyone thinks you've lost your mind. Let them think that. Maya, stop being dramatic and come home.
No.
You're throwing away our marriage over nothing. Over everything, actually. I hung up. He called 17 more times. I blocked his number. The review was in 3 days. Warren sent another message. Disclosure meeting confirmed. Conference room B. All documentation will be presented publicly. I replied, I'll be there. Evan posted on social media that night. Family is everything. So blessed to have people who support each other through thick and thin. Some people quit when things get hard. Winners stay and fight. Hashtag family first. Hashtag never give up. The post had 147 likes, including one from Marcus. I screenshot it and saved it in a folder labeled evidence. 2 more days. Evan's victory lap intensified. He held a pre-celebration dinner at an expensive restaurant, inviting the whole family plus several board members. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I heard about it afterward from my Aunt Patricia, who'd started texting me privately. Evan gave a speech, she wrote. Thanked everyone who'd supported him over the years. Mentioned your parents, his mentors, even Warren. Never mentioned you once. I wasn't surprised. He's acting like the VP position is already his, Patricia continued. Very confident. Almost cocky. Almost. Okay, definitely cocky. He said something about how some people are born to lead and others are born to follow. Everyone knew he meant you. I stared at my phone screen, feeling nothing. Not anger. Not hurt. Just a cold, clear certainty that tomorrow would shatter his entire world. Warren had sent me the final agenda. The disclosure meeting would cover historical company contributions, financial impact analysis, attribution of major projects, compensation, history tied to documented achievements, recommendations for leadership placement. It was all very technical, very boring sounding. Nobody would suspect what was actually about to happen. The conference room holds 50 people, Warren had mentioned. The board insisted on transparency. Everyone involved in the transition will be there. 50 witnesses. 50 people who'd watched Evan humiliate me. 50 people who'd see the truth. I went to bed early. Tomorrow, I wanted to be rested. Tomorrow, everything changed. The conference room was exactly as I remembered it. Long table, leather chairs, windows overlooking the city. It felt eerily similar to the banquet hall where Evan had mocked me. Full circle. I arrived early, taking a seat near the back. People filed in slowly. Board members.
Department heads.
Family. Dad sat near the front, looking nervous. Mom beside him, clutching her purse. Evan entered like royalty, shaking hands, radiating confidence. Marcus came too, though he avoided looking at me. Diane spotted me and whispered something to Marcus. They both stared. I stared back calmly. Warren entered last, carrying 2 thick binders. He set them on the table with a heavy thud. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "This review is standard protocol for executive transitions. We'll be examining documented contributions, financial impacts, and verified achievements over the past 7 years." Evan nodded along, totally relaxed. He expected validation, celebration, confirmation of everything he'd built his reputation on. Warren opened the first binder. "Let's begin with the system integration project from 2017, he said. "This was identified as a foundational achievement that saved the company approximately $2.8 million over 5 years. Evan sat straighter, ready for his moment. Warren cleared his throat and read, "Primary architect and lead designer, Chen." The room went silent. Evan's smile froze on his face. Warren continued reading, his voice steady and professional. "Implementation timeline shows Chen as project lead from initial concept through final deployment. Supporting team members included 4 junior analysts and 1 operations supervisor." He looked up from the document. That supervisor was Evan Chen, who provided workflow coordination but was not involved in system design. Someone coughed. The sound echoed in the silent room. Evan's face had gone pale.
Wait.
That can't be right. Warren pulled another document. "Would you like to see the project records? They're all here. Timestamps, email correspondence, design documents, all carrying Maya's digital signature and authentication codes." "There must be some mistake," Evan insisted, voice rising. "I designed that system. Everyone knows that." "Everyone assumed it," Warren corrected gently. "But the documentation tells a different story." He moved to the next project, then the next. Each time, my name appeared as primary contributor. Each time, Evan's role shrank to coordinator, supporter, or simply absent. The automated reconciliation system, the client reporting framework, the data migration protocol, the compliance tracking module.
Mine. 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 Mine.
Evan gripped the table, knuckles white. "This is wrong. Someone altered these files." "These files are timestamped and backed up on secure servers," Warren said calmly. "They haven't been altered. They've been here all along." Dad leaned forward, staring at the documents like they were written in a foreign language. Mom's hand covered her mouth. Marcus finally looked at me, really looked, and I saw the exact moment he understood. I wasn't the failure. I never had been. Warren turned to a new section in his binder. The room held its collective breath. "Now, let's discuss compensation tied to these contributions." He pulled out a spreadsheet, projecting it onto the screen behind him. Rows and rows of numbers, color-coded, meticulously organized. Historical earnings are tracked through company payroll, consulting contracts, and project bonuses. These numbers represent documented, verified income over the past 7 years. He highlighted one column. Evan Chen's total compensation, including his current salary, bonuses, and benefits. The number was impressive. Around $420,000 over 7 years. Then Warren highlighted a second column. My column. Chen's total compensation from consulting contracts, project bonuses, and specialized work. The number appeared on screen. $1.7 million. Someone gasped. I think it was Mom. Evan stared at the screen like it had physically struck him. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "This doesn't include Maya's current primary employment," Warren continued, "which is private consulting work she does independently. That income isn't tracked here because it's not company-related." Diane made a strangled sound. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Warren met my eyes across the room, asking silent permission. I nodded once. "For context," he said quietly, "Maya's current annual income from her consulting practice is approximately $240,000. Dead silence. Not 40,000. Not struggling. Not pathetic. $240,000 a year. Evan's face had gone from pale to gray. He didn't just look embarrassed. He looked like he'd stopped breathing. Warren let the numbers sink in. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The projected spreadsheet glowed on the screen, undeniable and absolute. Finally, Warren said my full name. The sound of it filled the room like a bell. Maya Chen. He paused deliberately. Primary architect of the foundational systems currently supporting this company's operational efficiency. The words hung in the air. Evan gripped the table harder. A vein pulsed in his temple. The documentation is clear, Warren continued. While Evan Chen has provided valuable coordination and team management, the intellectual property, system design, and strategic implementation consistently trace back to Maya Chen's direct contribution. Dad stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. Everyone turned to look at him. He stared at Warren, then at the projected numbers, then at me. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked. Why didn't you say anything? I met his eyes calmly. Would you have listened? The question landed like a stone in still water. Ripples of discomfort spread through the room. Maya, Dad started. You believed what you wanted to believe, I said quietly. All of you did. Evan was visible, confident, loud. I was quiet. So you assumed quiet meant small. Warren closed his binder with a decisive thud. The review board has all the documentation needed to make informed leadership decisions. Thank you for your time. People began standing, murmuring, avoiding eye contact. Evan remained seated, staring at nothing. Marcus looked at me like I was a stranger. And Diane, for the first time in 6 years, had absolutely nothing to say. The room emptied slowly. People filed out in uncomfortable silence, glancing back at Evan still frozen at the table. Dad approached me at the door, his face torn between shame and confusion. I should have paid attention, he said. I should have asked questions. I should have. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Can we talk? Really talk? I looked at this man who'd raised me, taught me, and then forgot to see me. Eventually. But not today. He nodded, accepting the boundary. I'm proud of you. I know I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. The words should have felt good. They mostly felt hollow. Thank you, I said, and meant it more than he'd ever know. Warren appeared beside us, professional mask slipping into a small smile. That went well. For some of us, I replied. The board will be making decisions about the VP position within the week. Given the documentation, I suspect the outcome will be different than anticipated. We both knew what that meant. Evan's promotion was dead. As I walked to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. Marcus. Maya, please. We need to talk. I turned. He looked desperate, his carefully maintained composure crumbling. There's nothing to talk about. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about the money, the projects, any of it. You never asked, I said. You never wondered. You just assumed I was exactly what Evan said I was. I'm sorry. I know. But sorry doesn't undo 6 years of being invisible in my own marriage. I got in my car and drove away, watching him shrink in my rearview mirror. The fallout was swift and brutal. Within 3 days, the board announced the VP position would go to an external candidate. Evan wasn't even shortlisted. Dad called a family meeting, and for the first time in my adult life, he apologized to me publicly. I failed you, he said in front of everyone. I should have verified. I should have questioned. I should have protected your contributions instead of assuming Evan's version of events was complete. Mom cried. Evan stared at the floor. Maya has been the backbone of achievements we all took for granted, Dad continued. And I owe her more than an apology. I owe her recognition, respect, and support. Aunt Patricia started clapping. A few others joined in. It felt surreal. Evan stood abruptly and left the room. Nobody stopped him. Later, Marcus tried to reconcile. He sent flowers, letters, desperate text messages that I read and deleted. I love you. I was wrong. Please give me another chance. But love without respect isn't love. And he'd shown me, over and over, that he'd never respected me at all. Diane called once, her voice tight, with barely controlled rage. You humiliated my son. Your son humiliated himself, I replied and hung up. The divorce papers were filed 2 weeks later. Marcus contested nothing. Maybe he finally understood how badly he'd miscalculated. Or maybe he just wanted it over. Either way, I was free. My career flourished. Word spread about my work, and consulting offers poured in. I was finally visible on my own terms. And then, exactly 6 weeks after the review, my phone rang. Evan's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Maya. His voice was rough, uncertain. Can we talk? I said nothing, waiting. I need your help. The board is restructuring, and they're asking questions I can't answer. About systems I claim to understand, but he paused. I don't. You don't understand the systems you took credit for, I said flatly. I learned the operations side. But the architecture, the back-end design, I never. He exhaled shakily. You know I never actually built those systems. Yes, I know. I'm being reassigned. They're moving me to a smaller role. I'll take a pay cut, lose my team, everything. Desperation crept into his voice. If you could just walk me through the documentation, help me prepare presentations that show I understand. So, you want me to help you fake knowledge you don't have? Silence. Evan, you stood in front of 200 people and mocked my pathetic salary. You let everyone believe I was a failure. You took credit for my work for 7 years. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry. Are you sorry you did it or sorry you got caught? He didn't answer. I wish you well, I said quietly. I genuinely hope you find success in whatever role you move into. But I can't help you. Not because I'm angry. Because you need to learn to stand on your own achievements, not mine. Maya, please. Goodbye, Evan. I hung up and blocked his number. It felt like setting down a weight I'd carried for years. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday. I signed papers in a quiet office while Marcus sat across from me, looking smaller than I remembered. I really did love you, he said afterward. I know. Then why couldn't we fix this? I gathered my copies of the documents, sliding them into my bag. Because you loved the version of me you invented. Struggling Maya. Dependent Maya. Maya who needed you to feel valuable. That's not fair. It's completely fair. I stood. You never wanted an equal partner. You wanted someone to rescue. And when you discovered I didn't need rescuing, you couldn't handle it. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. What could he say? The evidence was everywhere. I hope you find someone who fits what you need, I said honestly. But it was never going to be me. I walked out of that office into afternoon sunshine, feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed. A text from Warren. Board wants to consult with you on the operational transition. Interested? I smiled.
Very.
Send details. 2 weeks later, I signed a consulting contract worth more than Evan's former salary. The work was interesting, challenging, respected. I bought a small house with a view of the mountains. I adopted a dog. I started painting again, a hobby I'd abandoned years ago when Marcus called it a waste of time. Life became mine again. Dad, and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. He showed up differently now, asking questions, listening to answers, seeing me clearly. Evan and I didn't speak. Maybe someday we would. Or maybe we wouldn't. Either way, I was okay. 6 months after the review, Evan reached out one more time. Not asking for help. Just reaching out. I've been in therapy, his email said. Trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I needed to diminish you to feel big. I read it twice before responding. I'm glad you're getting help. That takes courage. I know an apology won't fix anything. But I am sorry. Truly sorry. I believed him. Or at least I believed he wanted to be sorry. Thank you for saying that. Could we get coffee sometime? No agenda. Just siblings talking? I thought about it for 3 days. Weighed the risks and benefits. Considered whether I wanted any relationship with him at all. Finally, I replied, not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. His response came quickly. I understand. I'll be here when you're ready. If you're ever ready. I closed my laptop and looked out at the mountains. The dog, a golden retriever named Copper, rested his head on my lap. Was I Angry anymore? Not really. Anger required energy I'd rather spend elsewhere. Did I forgive Evan? That was more complicated. Forgiveness felt like a door I could open or keep closed. Either choice was valid. For now, I chose closed. Not out of spite. Out of self-preservation. He'd earned my absence. And I'd earned my peace. Maybe someday that would change. Or maybe it wouldn't. Either way, I was okay. More than okay. I was finally completely free. I think about that retirement dinner sometimes. Evan at the microphone, the chandelier glittering, 200 people laughing while my face burned with shame. Some of us carried this family, he'd said. Everyone had looked at me, the failure, the disappointment. If I could go back to that moment, would I defend myself? Would I stand up and announce my real salary, my real contributions, my real worth?
No.
Because the truth didn't need defending. It just needed time. Silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's dignity. Sometimes it's knowing that eventually, inevitably, reality catches up with lies. Evan built his entire identity on a foundation of borrowed achievements. When that foundation cracked, everything crumbled. I built mine on actual work, documented and real. That foundation stood firm. The people who mattered learned the truth. The people who didn't matter disappeared from my life. And I learned something valuable about myself. I don't need anyone's permission to be successful. I don't need anyone's validation to be worthy. I don't need to shrink so others can feel big. I am enough, exactly as I am. Quiet or loud. Visible or invisible. Rich or poor. I am enough. Last week, I ran into Diane at the grocery store. She saw me, hesitated, then looked away and walked past without speaking. I smiled, genuinely, because her opinion no longer touched me. Her words no longer wounded me. Her judgment no longer mattered. I bought my groceries, drove home to my Mountain View house, and had dinner with friends who see me clearly. And somewhere in the city, Evan was probably still trying to figure out how everything fell apart. But that was his journey now. Not mine. Mine was just beginning. Never mistake silence for weakness. Sometimes the quietest people are simply waiting for the right moment to speak. And when they do, the whole world stops to listen.